let's talk about specificity. If I ask you the question, do you know what the specificity is? Before you give me an answer, or a potential answer, just to prove how important this is, let me show you an example. I used to work for Sky TV 2 years working with them. On every single week, 2 years, that is about 800 weeks, I had an average of 2 job interviews. We were constantly trying to bring people. My very first question to every single candidate was, do you know what the specificity is? Yeah, that was always my first question. That said, do you know what the specificity is? What? Style declaration, wrong. How to choose element, okay, getting a bit warmer. The hierarchy. Yeah, Kiran. Scope. Right, so there are multiple ways to approach specificity, and eventually, for instance, following Ahmed or Katerina approach, I can get the feeling that you really know what it is, so it could be okay. However, we end up, the majority of developers end up messing around about what the specificity is, because there is a very simplistic answer. Specificity is a number. That's it. Yeah, you see, a number. We'll see if it's 1, 2, or 3 million, but it's a number, right? All right, so let me show you the problem. I got an app, which is very basic, as you can see. I hope everyone can see the screen. Can you zoom it a bit more? Yes, I can. Yeah. So let me create a div here. No, sorry. Let me change that. Let me. So because we were working about the Sky, let's talk about Trust TV. All right. So Trust TV. So yesterday I watched a very weird TV show called 100% Hotter. Have you watched that one? Yeah. Weird people with weird outfit. They go there and they say, no, we're going to change you. You know, and they change completely the look and feel of that person. It's completely crap, right? But it's quite entertaining, especially, yeah, if you drink a bit. All right, so 100% Hotter, right? Look, I got that. And then let me, instead of a div, let me display span, for instance, which is an HTML element. So now my point is, I go into my CSS and I'm typing span. Let me add some properties on it. Display block, that may not be even necessary, so you can ignore that. Let me add the background color green, color white, and then width 100 pixels, maybe 200, why not? And height, another 200 pixels, right? And maybe padding 15 pixels. Some CSS. Let's see how that looks like. Yeah, you got the box. Let me add the font. How we increase the font size, guys? Font size, right? Font size 30 pixels. That's it. Does it make sense? Yeah, so we got our green box on the right-hand side. Actually, I'll tell you something. To avoid doing back and forth, let me display both windows in parallel. You know, I love that, so that will hopefully help a bit to understand, to understand the journey. So I'll leave the CSS on the left and I'll leave the browser on the right. Also with DevTools, guys, remember to keep DevTools all the time open. If you go to a job interview to do the final pairing coding exercise, you start working with a feature they requested and you don't open DevTools, even if you are progressing and you feel comfortable and everything okay, the interviewer will complain internally, we say this guy doesn't know how to code. So the very first thing when you do a pairing exercise, always DevTools open. Always DevTools open, right? So I got DevTools open, I got my CSS, blah, 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 all these sort of things. And now let's add some questions to the discussion. What happened? What happened if I now add another span with background color blue? Which will be the color, blue or green, and why? Green. Blue, green, why blue, why green?
Blue because it's the latest one.
Interesting.
Because it's the first one.
Ah.
Blue because it's the latest one, so
Yeah.
it's permanent over.
Correct. So both Edward and Bilal are right. So CSS is read from top to bottom. So the last one wins. Be careful with that. But for now, you can see they're right. It's blue. Yeah. So the last style wins. And actually, I'll tell you something. If something that people tend to ignore, but I think is extremely powerful. If you check on the Elements panel on your web browser, and you select your blue box, look at what happened. Background color blue, you see? And look at what happened with background color green. Can you see that? Yeah. It's a straight through. Google is telling you, hey, yes, you tried to apply that, but eventually that was replaced by another style. All right, so we agree on that. Let me change the example a bit. I'm going to add a class to my span. So the class will be show, for instance, yeah? Class name, right? We agree on class name? That's React class name show. And now in my CSS, I will add dot show background color pink. Can you tell me the eventual color of my box? Blue, green, or pink? And why? Pink. Why blue? Why pink? It's more specific. Ooh, I love that answer. Esteban is right. It's more specific. But hey, wait a minute. Even if it's not more specific, it's at the bottom. Yeah, Kiran? Okay, cool. It's a class. Yeah. Okay, so there are two possibilities. First of all, let's see if it's pink or not. It is pink. It's hard to see, but I hope everyone agrees it's not blue or green, right? It's pink. But now, is it pink because it's at the end, and as Bilal and Edward explained, you know, the last one wins, or is it because, as Esteban and Kiran proposed, is more specific? Let's do a test. Let's do a test. Look, let's move the show to the very top of my file. That's a bit more complicated, right? What's the color now? Pink. Why pink? Because it's more specific. You see? Still on top. Even though it runs first, that style is more specific. Specificity is about that. How specific a selector is. I mentioned 3.5 minutes ago that specificity is a number. Let's talk about numbers. Can you tell me what's the number of this sort of selector? This is a tag selector. What's the number? To calculate if that style wins or loses here.
1.
That's correct. That's correct. The tag selector, span, div, label, whatever, has specificity 1. Oh, not like that. Sorry, let me add a new line. Specificity 1. All right, so 1 here, 1 there, and what about the class name? It's not 1. What is it? Wrong. 10. Edward is right. It's 10.
How do we find out those numbers?
Because this is our part of the standard.
Ah, all right.
Yeah, this is not what I'm. It's not my opinion. The standard works like that, right? So the browser understand that the value of that class is 10, the value of that selector is 1. Because 10 is higher than 1, this one wins. Yeah? And don't get me wrong, this only happens when there is a conflict. In other words, all the other properties still apply, width, height, because there is no conflict. But with the background color, I hope you can see there is a conflict. So that one wins. Does that mean that in reality, that will be always more specific? Not really. Look, this is more complicated than it seems. You know that with CSS, we can nest selectors. For instance, look, in reality, can I do, look at my plan. Can I do that? Div span.
Yes.
So that means, A, find a div on my HTML. Got it, here you go. And then inside of the div, find span element. Do we have a span element? Yes, here you go. So can you tell me now, what's the specificity of that selector? It's 2, correct. 1 plus 1 equals 2. So I hope you get the idea that eventually, if we nest a lot of selectors, that one may defeat this one. You agree on that?
Yeah.
Then we can talk about best practices, all these things. But technically speaking, yeah, that doesn't mean the class name is always more specific than the tag selector. It's 10 times more specific. That's it. And now, because we work with React, you know we can add attributes, right? So we can do, for instance, hello equals world. That's an attribute. We use that in React a lot, right, to pass props up and down. So in CSS, we can refer to that attribute in the following way. Let me show you. You see? That's an attribute selector. And now my background color will be, I eventually ran out of ideas with colors, guys, so you may need to help me. Red, fantastic, thank you, Katerina. Right, so you see, that's a class selector, that's an attribute selector. What's the specificity of the attribute selector? 100, wrong. 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 10, it's 10, correct. Same as the class names, yeah? Can you tell me which style wins now? What's the color of my box? Red? Why still pink? Someone said still pink.
I think because they have the same specificity, I think that the one at the bottom.
Yeah, that's what we explained before, right? It is red clearly, because even though they have the same specificity, the last one wins. Yeah? Cool. So we got tags. Let me close some tabs, otherwise it's going to be a bit complicated. Yeah, so we got tags, we got classes, we got a few things, right? Attributes as well. Let's keep playing with that. What if I add an ID? Let's add an ID here. ID equals Brexit. How do we refer to the ID in the CSS, guys? Has, correct. Has Brexit. And then background color. Give me a color, guys. Magenta. Oops. So magenta. So if my background color is magenta, what's the specificity of IDs in CSS?
10.
Wrong.
More than 10.
It's more than 10 because an ID is more unique. 100, correct. Correct. Catherine and Edward are right. It's 100. Yeah, it's more specific. More specific. So now, hopefully you can see this is magenta color. Matches that one. Yeah? Is there anything else more specific? Well, let me rephrase that. IDs were very popular in the 90s. But today, wait, we'll go there in a minute. So today, IDs are not that popular anymore. Because an ID is supposed to be something unique. That's why it's called identifier. But that doesn't play really well with React, for instance. Because React is about replicating things. If I have a box, but I replicate that component, I may have multiple IDs with the same value. Not great, right? But it is, technically speaking, it's still valid. Still a valid option, of course. Is there anything more specific than IDs? What?
Important.
Okay. Is there anything more specific than IDs but less specific than important? No? Wrong? There is something.
Something inside an ID, some element inside another one with an ID.
Well, no, but in reality, we'll just combining, because we can combine operators, we can combine IDs plus classes, blah, blah, blah. But any unique selector.
The start.
The what? Start? I don't even know what it means. No? No? Okay, I'll show you. Style. Oh, that's the key. Katerina got it. With CSS, sorry, with HTML, you can do something extremely controversial, but still technically speaking valid, which is that. Inline styles. And be careful, because we mentioned several times that that piece of code looks like HTML, but it's not HTML. That's a good example. Style works different on HTML and on JSX, on React. The way you declare styles with React is, if I remember correctly, you need to pass an object, and as part of the object, you pass the key using camel case. You remember camel case? Background color, and then the value, black. If I remember correctly, the syntax is something like that. So what's the specificity of a style? How much? 100 is 8,000. Yeah, 800 is for IDs. 8,000. That means that my color, here you go, is black. Well, we'll see if it's game over or not. Can we defeat inline styling by concatenating 8,000 elements, 8,001 here? Technically speaking, we can. But in that case, probably you need some medical help. Yeah? All right. Is there anything more specific than inline styles? What? Important. Ahmed is right. We can change everything. You remember that green color that was completely destroyed by every other rule? Look at what happened if now I add a suffix. Or let me rephrase that. Before going to important, another classic job interview question. Two questions, one for junior positions, one for senior positions. For juniors, what do you think about inline styles? Is it a good practice? Is it a bad practice, and why? Bad. Why bad?
Because what?
You cannot change it.
It's very hard to find, for example, a bug if you have a bug in your code. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. So inline styling is considered, generally speaking, and historically speaking, is considered a bad practice because it's about separation of concerns. If we want to do CSS, we go to CSS because we can reuse CSS and all these things. Yeah. Now, however, you may have heard about something called React style components. Yeah. If you haven't heard about React style components, that's a very trendy way of coding that I completely disagree with, but it's very trendy, so it's fair to say that is about doing this, sort of, yeah? You can style components, and then you can reuse styles and blah, 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 yeah? I'm a bit against that. I got the theory, and I know this is a bit controversial, because I've never found a person who is able to give me a good reason to use style components, yeah? To me, the feeling I got is, you know these people that they want to go on a diet, and they try to get some healthy food, and it doesn't work for them because they end up on KFC at night. And then they say, wait a minute, no, I'll do a detox diet and I'll spend a lot of money. So they try to find a diet that works with them, and in reality, maybe the problem is with them, not with the diet, right? So what I found, it may be just a coincidence, I don't want to be very aggressive on this thought, that people liking React styles, people are struggling with CSS. And because they struggle with CSS, they think that having inline style components that make, they will become automatically better developers. I don't think that's the case. Yeah? They may be a good reason. I haven't been able to find it. That's my message. So that's about inline styles. However, is there any advantage? Is there any scenario that's for seniors? Yeah, that's for seniors. But eventually, if you get that question, if you add what I'm going to say next, they will be really surprised because they may not even know that. Is there any scenario where you will consider adding inline styles? Can you give me a good reason for that?
When you don't have access to external, or you want to override or root on external CSS.
But you can override external CSS using CSS as well, right?
Yeah.
In a situation, in a time-limited situation where I have to change something,
Yeah.
and be sure that I need that change.
Not really, because again, you can do that with CSS. I'll show you two scenarios, Well, I'll show you one and I'll let you know about the other, where inline style is considered an acceptable strategy. For instance, I'm going to the code because we do that. And let me show you something. Can you see what happened when I hover the button? Do you see the tooltip, right? Yeah. But if I click somewhere else, the tooltip is on a different position. In other words, I cannot predict the position of my tooltip using CSS. It could be 10 pixels on the right, could be 30, could be 40. Yeah, it depends. It's dynamic. Whenever you need to be pixel perfect and you need to decide on the fly where your tooltip is, you need to do that with JavaScript. There's no alternative. Because it could be, have you seen these animations that follow your cursor? So you move around the screen and there is something following you?
Yeah, no,
That's CSS written in JavaScript. Yeah? So that's one scenario, which is a bit exotic, but hey, that's an example, right? Why my tooltip is 45 pixels on the right of my screen? Because I got a button on the right. That button is a bit on the left. That button is a bit more on the left. Yeah? So that's dynamic. That's one scenario. The second reason where we may be tempted to use inline styling, and that's very extreme, but it still applies, is because of performance. Inline style is slightly more performant than external styling. 99.99% of the web pages don't care about that. But if you are Amazon, improving the render time by 0.1% could make a difference. Yeah? So they do inline style. But don't get me wrong, they don't code like that. They don't do that. What they do is they do external styling, and then once they deploy the changes to the cloud, you will see that on task number 17, there is a process in between that translates that external style into inline style. In other words, if you go to this sort of web pages and you check the HTML, you will see a lot of inline styling. And the first thing you may think about is, hey, how stupid engineers at Amazon are to do that. Obviously, they are not stupid, they are very talented, right? So there is a process in between, from development to execution time. All right, inline styles. And again, as Ahmed suggested, there is a way to defeat inline styles by adding question mark, exclamation mark important. Boom, it's green again, exclamation mark important. Yeah? Slash important, that's the most specific selector in CSS. I think the number of the specificity is 10,000. Again, the same question. If you're applying to a junior position and you get the question, what do you think about using a slash important? Is it a good thing, a bad thing? Why?
It's a bad thing, but
Is that a thing bad?
it's bad.
I think it's a good thing.
You think it's a good thing?
Yes. And the reason I think is because it makes sure that nothing else can override.
All right, I'll show you what happened. I'll show you what happened. I did that piece of code, and my box was blue, and everyone was happy. The day after, I come to the office, and I realized that my box is green. Like, what the hell? What's going on? It was blue yesterday. And then I realized that one of my colleagues added that. Like, no, that's completely unfair. No. I like to add the important thing as well. And then my box is blue. And then the day after, my colleague said, hey, what the hell? It was green? Now it's, right? So we said, no, I'll go to my attribute and I'll add important here. And now it's red. And then someone, no. You see the problem, right? We start adding important all around the code. And that becomes impossible to maintain. That's a horrible practice, yeah? Don't do that. Ahmed doesn't get the job, correct. So, that's a good point, yeah, I agree on that. So, exclamation mark important is about practice. We should try to avoid it. It only creates conflict, yeah? And then the code is very hard to maintain. However, again, the same question. Is there any scenario where we are allowed or is acceptable to use exclamation mark important?
If you never want to change to make any changes, maybe it's okay.
If you don't want to make any changes. I'll show you an example. Back to the same tooltip example. There is one scenario where using exclamation mark important is acceptable. Again, this is probably not for a junior position, but because it's so simple to remember, I recommend you to keep that in mind. Look, I didn't build that tooltip. Actually, it's a bit glitchy. You see, it doesn't show correctly. That's an external library someone created, but I'm using it. And it turns out that this library, which is a black box to me, I don't want to see the code of the library, is the tooltip by default I think is orange. The color of the tooltip is orange. Orange doesn't play really well with our color scheme. Yeah, it will feel a bit weird to have orange there. I want that tooltip to be cerulean color. Cerulean color, if you are wondering, is technically speaking, background color is, that's my favorite color, right? That's the coded color, O00AAEF, right? All right, so I do that. But after applying the changes, well, that's a bit controversial. Let's change the example. Imagine that by default it's blue, but I don't want it blue. I want it red, right? So the library brings blue, but I want it red. So I do background color red, but then still blue. What the hell? And then I said, okay, let's increase the specificity. Let's do something like that, right? Is it red already? Oh, still blue. Yeah? Let's add an ID somewhere. So something like that. You see, we're increasing the number. And over time, I'm trying to get red tooltip. Doesn't work. And why doesn't work? Because maybe the creator of the library internally, he did that. He created inline style. In other words, whenever you don't have the control on that piece of code, and that happens when you are not the owner of the code, this is an external library, it could be sometimes complicated to overwrite the styles. It could be challenging. Because of that, eventually, what you say is, hey, I don't care. I just want that to red. Easy. Because I cannot change the original code. Yeah? Generally speaking, if you see lots of important suffixes, it smells bad. That means the guys have been unable to orchestrate their styling. But in some particular scenarios, if you have to deal with external libraries, that may be the only option. But again, that's something exceptional. And please, whenever you do that, do this. See? At the comment. Yeah? Because if you send me a pull request without a comment and I see that, I will immediately reject it. So it's okay, nothing is white or black, but at least try to defend your strategy. Yeah? Is there any questions? No? All right, so I'd like to leave it here. Just one more thing. If you forgot about values and stuff like that, if you do a quick search on Google, CSS specificity images, and then you will see, I mean, there are many images that prove the theory, right? But then you can see elements, that's 1, or scale factor 1, classes, attributes factor 10, IDs factor 100, and style factor 8,000. Yeah? I'd like to leave an open question. I'm not going to answer. Yeah? I'd like you to do a bit of research. Is there anything less specific than 1? Is there any sort of selector with specificity 0? I'm not going to answer that unless Kieran knows the answer already.
Yeah, close. I was going to say star.
Star. He's right, actually. He's right. In CSS, you can do that. Yeah, that's a way to declare general styles to every single element. I'm not a big fan of that. That feels a bit scary. But technically speaking, that's correct. Star, like, it will apply to every single element on my HTML. Yeah? It's a bit confusing because, you know, CSS, the first C stands for cascade, correct? That means if you apply a style on top, it will cascade down. So you don't have to apply style to every single element because children element will inherit parent styling. That's why I find this a bit weird. But again, technically speaking, it's right. Specificity of the wildcard or the asterisk or the star selector is 0. Yeah? And the very last thing is, I really love a joke. Have you know The Shining, right? A very popular TV show. Not TV show, that was a movie, sorry. From Jack Nicholson, right? Shining, yeah. So, see if I can find the full-size image. Oh, God. Yeah, here we go. So, I love that picture. To be honest, I don't know who did that. But I love that. Yeah, CSS specificity with the Shining. Yeah, you see the universal selector. Well, if you watch the movie, then probably you can understand that. If not, that's a bit weird, right? That you see what happened with the important selector on the right? Game over. It is a good example. Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you something. If I am on a job interview, to be honest, if I feel very comfortable, I even show them that. Yeah. Because that, you know, it's a way to prove that you have some natural interest and curiosity on these things, right? Cool. Yeah. If you want to find this, search on Google CSS specificity designing. Yeah. Cool. That was it from my side, guys. Thank you very much.